Tonight, Federal High Court Abuja strikes out 8 of the 15-count charge filed by the federal government against the detained leader of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu. Prosecution counsel says remaining charges are baseless. Nigeria Labour Congress takes protest to the venue of a planned meeting of the Nigerian Governors Forum in Abuja. Says independence of councils, judiciary and state assemblies is non-negotiable. Once again, the UN raises concerns over looming food crisis in the northeast, says over 4 million people are at risk of hunger and malnutrition in the region.
And in international news from London, Ukraine says 39 people are dead and many dozens more injured after a rocket attack hits a train station at Kramatorsk.
And on business news tonight, United Nations Food Agency says global food prices hit a new record high in March amid Russia-Ukraine crisis.
On sports news tonight, Germany tennis legend Boris Becker facing a possible jail sentence after being found guilty on 4 charges under the Insolvency Act related to his 2017 bankruptcy.
From Abuja, Vice President Yemi Osinbajo applauds synergy between state and federal governments in advancing good governance as he inaugurates projects in Ebonyi State.
Some reprieve may have come for the detained leader of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu, as the Federal High Court Abuja has struck out 8 of the 15-count charge filed by the federal government against him. In a ruling today, Justice Binta Nyako freed Nnamdi Kanu of counts 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 and 14, which border on incitement to attack police and kill police officers and to destabilize the economic structures of the country. However, the court held that Kanu has to defend himself on counts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8 and 15, based on allegations leveled against him. While the prosecution counsel maintains that the court focused on Kanu's contempt of court, Kanu's lead counsel says the federal government has nothing against his client.
This has become the normal situation whenever the case involving the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Mr. Nnamdi Kanu, comes up at the Federal High Court. However, the situation is different following the implementation of the practice direction for the trial of terrorism cases issued by the Chief Judge of the Federal High Court, Justice John Soho. Journalists were barred from covering the day's proceedings. Nevertheless, the trial judge, Justice Binta Nyako, proceeds to deliver her ruling on Mr. Kanu's preliminary objections, which is on the jurisdiction to entertain the suit. While she dismissed the objection, she struck out 8 of the 15 charges against Mr. Kanu. The dismissed charges border on incitement to attack police officers and destabilize the economic structures in the country, among others.
8 of the 15-count charge were quashed and dismissed, leaving 7 counts that are on wobbling legs, counts that wobble, counts that are groggling, counts that fumble, counts that dwaddle. They will not stand, they will not hold water, because you cannot build something upon nothing and expect it to stay. It is not possible. If 8 counts went, the remaining 7, as a necessary corollary, we go. It follows as the night, the day, as the rainy season, the dry season. It follows. The 7 counts remaining, we go. But when we look at those 7 counts, whether they even hold any water at all in law.
However, he is expected to answer on the charges that border on his leadership of IPOB. The judge also insists that the earlier bench warrant issued against him still stands.
All the counts relating to terrorism are really sustained by the court and make heavy weather on the issue of rendition, and the court bluntly said that rendition in this situation is allowed, because rendition in criminal law, in criminal case, is allowed. After all, the defendant is under a bench warrant, and anywhere he is seen, the law allows him to be taken and be forcefully brought to court, and that was what exactly happened. And again, with respect to membership of IPOB, which he denied, it was the argument of the defendant that the matter is on appeal on whether IPOB is a proscribed organization under the Nigerian law or not. The court also emphatically said even though the issue is on appeal, but what is in place is that IPOB still remain a terrorist organization within the confine of Nigerian law.
The judge subsequently fixed May 18 for ruling on his bail application, while the trial begins on May 26, 2022, at the Code of Conduct Tribunal Complex, Abuja.
Away from the judiciary, the Nigeria Labour Congress appears not to be backing down on its advocacy for total autonomy for all tiers and arms of government, including the judiciary, local governments and state houses of assembly. President of the NLC, Mr. Ayuba Waba, gave this indication during a protest at the venue of a planned meeting of the Nigeria Governors Forum in Abuja. Mr. Waba explains that the status quo is hampering the development of the country and wants the governors to grant autonomy to other tiers of government in line with the recent amendments to the Constitution.
We are aware that the Governors Forum will be meeting here. We are aware that they are meeting to look at other issues. But we have three demands. Those demands are, one, autonomy for the local government. Demand number two, autonomy for the judiciary. Demand number three, autonomy for our state houses of assembly and the entire parliament. That is the reason we are here. If it is not on the agenda, they must put it as on the agenda. Is that not what we want? It must be on the agenda. And it must pass through. We are tired of going round shackles of cycle. The underdevelopment today in Nigeria can be traced to the fact that the local government system is not working. The funds of the local government are not being given to them. We are aware that the funds of the local government is now pocket money for the boys. We are aware that there is no credible election in the local government system. And therefore, the issue of joint account, we don't want that to happen again. The members of the National Assembly have done their bit. All those issues have been contained in the proposed constitutional amendment. We are also aware that those bills, as passed by the two chambers of the National Assembly, have been transmitted to the state houses of assembly. And therefore, we want them to do the needful.
And now to the northeast, where the United Nations is raising concern that over 4 million people are at risk of food shortage and malnutrition. Speaking at an advocacy meeting in Abuja, the United Nations resident coordinator, Mr. Matthias Schmale, explains that the sum of $351 million is required to address the situation.
This is a joint advocacy championed by the United Nations to raise awareness for the urgent resources mobilization from both the international community and the federal government to address food security and nutrition in Nigeria's northeast region. Nigeria's northeast region has been battling insurgency for the past 12 years, and this has impacted the livelihoods of the people, especially farmers. This has further exacerbated the state of food security and nutrition in the region.
As the impact of food insecurity intensifies across the region, malnutrition is also increasing and threatening the survival of an estimated 1.7+ million children under 5 years old. Levels of acute malnutrition in Borno and Yobe states are the highest recorded since 2016.
According to the United Nations, 8.4 million people in the region need humanitarian assistance, and 4.1 million of them are in severe need of food security and nutrition. The UN Humanitarian Response Plan for Nigeria is seeking $1.1 billion to support 5.5 million people, and $351 million is urgently needed by May 2022 to provide some assistance to affected people.
For people across Borno, Adamawa, and Yobe State, every day is a challenge, and without quick action, no relief is in sight. Funding is urgently needed to ensure critical food and nutrition assistance, as the gap between people in need and available resources will grow more severe. To avoid further malnutrition, exposure to protection risk, or even starvation, a scale-up of operations is critical.
The UK has made a strong commitment that we will continue to fulfil our obligations on the humanitarian side, as we also support other crises around the world. I don't have the exact figure yet, we're still awaiting our figures, but I expect us to be able to at least maintain the support we provided last year, which helped reach around 1.2 million people.
Beyond providing some relief for the affected persons, the plan is to work in a way that enables the people to grow their own food, build their livelihoods, and strengthen their resilience.
Meanwhile, Bauchi State Governor Bala Mohammed says the federal government is all it takes to secure the country, but the president lacks the required support to tackle the challenge. The governor offered to collaborate with the federal government to manage the situation. Governor Mohammed stated this while distributing vehicles to district heads and all 20 local government council chairmen, whom he challenged to also play a role in the security of their domain.
The rule of engagement will be such that it must be approved by the police, the SSS, and the military, so that there is no conflict in what we are doing. Vigilante sometimes can be unsecure if it is not well regulated. We are very conscious of that. What we can leave as a legacy is a legacy of infrastructure and services and security. If I can produce drones in all the Emirates where I will be monitoring from the comfort of my room, I will do that by the grace of God, so that we will know what is happening. It's unacceptable for the federal government to continue to say that they cannot secure this country. They cannot secure our communities. We have the resources to do it. I really pity our father, the President Commander-in-Chief, because he really wants to do it, but he is not being supported. I, as a governor, head of a subnational administration, am ready to work with the federal government to make sure we secure our state and our country. It is our collective responsibility.
Staying with security, increase in national revenue and provision of massive employment to the youth are part of the manifesto of the National Rescue Movement as the nation prepares for the 2023 general elections. Speaking during the official handing over ceremony to the newly elected members of the National Working Committee of the party in Abuja, the national chairman, Mr. Chigozie Ude, lamented the security situation in the country. He also maintained that the party is structured towards driving the national economy to attract foreign investors.
National Rescue Movement is a party Nigerians have been waiting for a long time, to rescue them from the hands of people that lack fear of God, to rescue them from the hands of people that have no conscience, from people who could not give them security, electricity, affordable housing, good roads, affordable and quality education in our public schools, good health care system, among others. They have succeeded in making sure that common bread is no longer for the masses, but for the rich only. Even fish and meat is no longer for the masses, but for them and their families only. The mission of our great party, NRM, as a grassroots-based national party, is to rescue Nigeria and Nigerians from the people that had made life very difficult with policies that lacks human faith. Our Grandpa General have come to put smiles back to the faces of Nigerian masses.
In part two, after the break, convener of the National Consultative Forum, Professor Patu Tomi, urges leaders in the country to focus on nation building as the country braces for a major political transition in 2023. Do join us again. Welcome back. If you just joined us watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos, a reminder of our top stories. Federal High Court Abuja strikes out 8 of the 15 counts charge filed by the federal government against the detained leader of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu. Prosecution counsel says remaining charges are baseless. Nigeria Labour Congress takes protest at the venue of a planned meeting of the Nigerian Governors Forum in Abuja. Says independence of councils, judiciary and state assemblies is non-negotiable. Once again, the UN raises concerns over looming food crisis in the northeast. Says over 4 million people are at risk of hunger and malnutrition in the region. And Ukraine says at least 39 people dead, dozens more injured as an attack hits a train station in Kramatorsk. A group known as the Nigerian Consultative Front has continued to push its advocacy for the rescue of the nation from its current challenges, especially insecurity. A convener of the NCF, also known as the Third Force, Professor Patu Tomi, is asking all well-meaning leaders to focus on the task of governance and nation building as Nigeria heads for another political transition in 2023. He was speaking here in Lagos at a press conference.
We must now forge a consensus and a national unity approach to the moment. Indeed, in personal conversations with my friends, it's been dared to suggest that where we are today, what Nigeria probably does need is a government of national unity. And a reasoned way of setting aside the dominant political gladiators to heal the wounds of now in our country and set course anew. But that is one of the many ideas that are being put on the table. We do know, however, that the spirit of our country has gone through these kinds of times with some wisdom that has come forth. We want here to invite statesmen to approach the challenge of the moment in building a national unity solution with the same adroitness that General Yakubu Gowon approached matters in 1967.
In Anambra State, Governor Chukwuma Soludo has given reassurances to the people of the state that peace and stability must surely return to the state. He made the pledge when he visited the headquarters of Agwata local government area in Ekulobia, torched by arsonists. He said attackers acted like wounded animals as their camps in Uboji and Agulueze-Chukwu were smashed by police operatives, and in a reprisal attack, they burnt the Agwata local government secretariat.
Agwata local government area of Anambra State is the place the current governor of the state, Professor Chukwuma Soludo, hails from. On Thursday, the local government secretariat in Agwata town came under attack by some arsonists who set it on fire, leaving behind burnt buildings, cars and other valuables.
But when you look under it, you see that they made serious attempts to get...
This development brings Governor Soludo to the Secretariat to inspect what's left of the complex.
This vehicle belongs to Education Department.
After doing the rounds, he shares his thoughts on the incident.
Yesterday, the combined forces really got to the criminal camp between Aguleze Chukwu and Oboji. And that's a camp in which they continue to operate unhindered. And for the first time, they were smoked out from there, and the camp destroyed. And I think as they were fleeing from the place, cowardly now decided to come and set ablaze the local government. But thank God that the police came in on time and also smoked them out from here.
Governor Soludo also sounds a note of warning to the perpetrators, reminding them that they will not cow government and the people into submission.
We cannot tolerate all of this. My message to them is that take the olive branch and come out. Surrender your gun and we'll help you gain a useful life. But if you choose criminality, anyone in the bush with a gun is a criminal. Anybody in the bush with a gun is what? A criminal. And will be treated as such. There will be no hiding place anymore in Anambra. If you want to operate camps, if you want to do this, where you kidnap people and do that, you better find space elsewhere. Because if you fail to take the olive branch, we will come after you. And no amount of burning or whatever will cow the people.
The olive branch has been waved by Governor Chukwuma Soludo. The coming days will tell if the situation will change in the state.
Let's head on now to Abuja studio where Maokwe Ogun Yusuf is standing by with more on the news at 10. Hi, Maokwe.
Hello, Amarachi. Commendation for professionals in various fields, especially accounting, leads our stories tonight. President Muhammadu Buhari praised them, that's accountants, saying they provide the strength and framework for thriving economies. The president pledged his administration's continued engagement with experts to gain measurable and reliable results. He described the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria as a social stabilizer of the economy. He was speaking while receiving a delegation from the institute led by its president, Comfort Eitayo, at the State House here in Abuja.
You are an envious institution in the sense that it needs a lot of brains and discipline to qualify, which is not very common, and which is hard work involved in it is not a very favorable issue with us Nigerians. The less we work and the more we get, the better for us. I thank you very much for coming. I wish I will demand a comprehensive report of your visit so that I can look at it because I very much respect your competence as social stabilizers and for accounting of our resources. And I know through my experience, this is what most of us in Nigerians, we don't want to account for the responsibilities given to us. We just like to walk through life like that, which is not possible.
Meanwhile, the Vice President, Yemi Osinbajo, believes the states must synergize with the federal government to achieve meaningful developments in the face of current global challenges. Professor Osinbajo made the statement during a one-day state visit to Ebonyi, where he also commended the Council on Development for designing a roadmap for the growth of the country. He inaugurated some projects executed by Governor Dave Umahi's administration.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
The Exco Chambers is the venue of the event, as the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, and the Governor of Ebonyi State, David Umahi, stand for the national anthem as the event gets underway and the hall filled to capacity.
The Governor of Ebonyi State of Nigeria and
the Governor welcomes the Vice President with a traditional practice.
Will we traditionally present this cola nut to you, sir? Oji.
Thank you very much.
As the 21st edition of the National Council on Development Planning gets underway, the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Mrs. Zainab Ahmed, makes a virtual presentation centered on the federal government's national development programs.
As policy experts, planners, and managers of our economy, we must know that Nigerians are not interested on how we get it done or who should be blamed for our national predicaments. What they are yearning for is how the government intends to address the identified challenges, deliver good governance and dividends of democracy to the common man for sustainable national development. To achieve this and more, government has come up with various initiative programs such as the National Social Investment Program, including the Empower, the Government Enterprise Program, the Conditional Cash Transfer, as well as the Homegrown School Feeding Program.
A performance by the state troupe of the Council for Arts and Culture follows. The Governor, David Umahi, signposts the objectives of the meeting.
It's a remarkable day as we mark the end of our hosting of the 21st edition of the JPB and NCDP meetings. As a state, we are delighted and privileged to host this event. Over the years, the JDP and NCDP has been a veritable platform for discussing very important and pressing economic issues of our dear nation. This goes a long way to the significance of this event, today, that is termed good governance and institutionalization capacity, pathways to sustainable national development.
Professor Yemi Oshibanjo, SAMGCON.
Taking to the podium, the Vice President, Professor Yemi Oshibanjo, who conveys a message of support from President Muhammadu Buhari, commends the national and state dialogue on pertinent issues.
I bring you the very warm greetings of His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, who, as you know, feels very strongly that national councils such as this have a very important role to play in boosting cooperation between the states and the federal government, as well as in helping better coordination of economic policies for poverty reduction and sustainable development.
Onwards to the commissioning of the Government House Chapel. The David Umahi administration, with the unfolding of completed projects, is drawing attention to the developmental strides of the administration for the good of the people of Ebonyi State.
Still ahead on the news at 10, United Nations Food Agency says global food prices hit a new record in March amid Russia-Ukraine crisis. That's some business news. You join us again. Welcome back to the news at 10. In crime matters, police authorities in Katsina State have busted a syndicate of human traffickers while in transit to Libya through the Niger Republic border axis. The victims, comprising 8 females and 7 males, were apprehended at Baraji quarters in Daura local government area of the state. Addressing journalists at the command headquarters in Katsina, the state capital, police spokesperson SB Gambo Issa says the syndicate was nabbed while trying to convey the victims across the border. In the northeast, specifically in Adamawa State, the police command has intercepted a truckload of illicit drugs estimated at about 38 million naira. The consignment was said to be headed for Cameroon en route Mubi in northern Adamawa and a border town between Nigeria and the Republic of Cameroon. Parading the suspects and the seized drugs at the headquarters of the command in Yola, the Adamawa State capital, police spokesperson at the command, Suleiman Ngurore, said the operatives are working to identify those behind the smuggled drugs and their collaborators. And in other stories, the Minister of State for Environment, Mrs. Sharon Ikiazo, is pledging the federal government's commitment towards the protection and preservation of the nation's forest resources, which she says has experienced a decline from about 10% in 1970 to 8% to date. At a meeting to mark the International Day of Forests in Abuja, Ms. Ikiazo expresses worries that unless concerted efforts are made, the attainment of a total forest cover of 22% before the end of 2022 may not be achieved.
The demand for forest goods and services is on the rise with the increasing population against an unsustainable supply regime. The forest sector remains an important natural capital asset in the attainment of the national development goals and objectives of Nigeria, particularly in the generation of economic activities, employment, poverty reduction, provision of goods and services, and environmental security and sustainability. There are also a number of international commitments relevant to sustainable management of the forest and its significance at addressing climate change. In the light of the many emerging concerns and imperatives and the importance of the forestry sector to the people and our nation, the process for reviewing of the 2006 National Forest Policy was initiated in 2007 and completed with the adoption and approval by the National Council on Environment in the year 2019. This policy was finally approved by the Federal Executive Council in July of 2020. The revised 2020 National Forest Policy sets out strategies for growing the sector and addressing emerging environmental issues like climate change resulting from increased population and its attendant pressure on our forests and resources.
Well, that's all from Abuja. It's back to you, Amara.
Thanks a lot, Malpe, and have a great weekend. Southeastern Oil and Gas Nigeria Limited, an indigenous oil company, has commissioned a new filling station in the Kufa Fanfo area of Kano metropolis to further expand fuel distribution in the state. Immediately after the inauguration, the new Southeastern Oil station outlet, the Southeastern Oil, gave the first 100 customers 5 liters of fuel free of charge as part of community support.
The colorful, newly commissioned Southeastern Oil and Gas filling station in the Kofa Fanfo area of Kano metropolis, ready to provide services to the people. And as the gates are thrown open, tricycle and motorcycle riders and others rushing in to get their free 5 liters of fuel provided for the first 100 customers.
The aim of opening this station in this period of Ramadan and to Nigeria at large is to flush out the scarcity in Kano metropolitans. The integrity of our dispensing PMS and AGO pump is undisputed. This evidence cut across our stations in Lagos, in Kwara, in Zamfara, in Jos, in Ilorin, in Kaduna, in Kano, in Sokoto, in Bauchi, and Jigawa State. Our 1 liter is 1 liter.
The company management also says jobs have been created with its latest addition in Kano State.
We have about 20 pumps, which are going to be manned by 2 attendants. That's already 40 people that have been employed already. Each pump has its own supervisors. That's an additional 20. That's already 6 people employed already. The NFR, the restaurant, the salon, and the eatery will have about 50 staff in all. So we are looking about 90 to 100 staff in Kano.
Some of the customers express satisfaction with the services they receive and commend Southeastern Oil's kind gesture.
They give me free fuel actually, and the liters I think they are selling at 165 per liter. Yeah, that's what they're selling. And actually I think I'm impressed with what they are doing. They said they are going to be selling for 7 days and for continuous 24 hours.
Thank you so much, Alhaji Salah Babarano, for opening this station during Ramadan period and during scarcity. Because now this station is going to run for 24 hours, and we are very happy that each and every time, if you do not get fuel during the day, during the night, then you should come and consume your fuel.
Southeastern Oil and Gas Nigeria Limited, which explores the emerging business opportunities in the maritime industry and the downstream oil sector, is spread across 14 states of the country. And this new addition, according to them, will be operating on a 24-hour basis.
One of Nigeria's leading financial institutions, Guarantee Trust Holding Company PLC, has announced a 3 Naira dividend for its shareholders. The Group Chief Executive Officer of GTCO, Mr. Segun Agbaje, made this known in Victoria Island, Lagos, during its first annual general meeting after evolving into a holding company. Mr. Agbaje says the 2021 performance reflects the strength of the company's franchise and underscores its ability to deliver long-term value for its stakeholders in spite of the challenges in the business environment.
Guarantee Trust Holding Company PLC, a multinational financial services group, is holding its first annual general meeting as GTCO PLC was created in July 2021 following the corporate reorganization of Guarantee Trust Bank PLC into a holding company.
For those present in the room,
going by its word to enrich lives and build strong, valuable relationships with customers, GTCO presents its 2021 annual report.
And also, I want to comment.
Gross earnings stood at 447.81 billion naira, profit before tax 221.50 billion naira, profit after tax 174.84 billion naira.
Independent non-executive director.
GTCO 2021 financial year, total assets increased by 9.9% to over 5 trillion naira. Total equity was up 8.5%. The conclusion of the year's financial activities is an appreciable earning to shareholders.
A resolution to declare a dividend in the sum of 2 Naira 70 kobo per ordinary share to shareholders whose names appear in the company's register of members, bringing the total dividend to be paid for the 2021 financial year to 3 Naira per ordinary share of 50 kobo each.
The shareholders applaud GTCO for its financial growth.
I can see the traces of digital instruments in our profitability. I want to appreciate the management for that.
I want to urge this board to create more companies. We are now holding company so that we have a pool of resources coming from them.
More than a bank today.
The Group Chief Executive Officer of GTCO, Segun Agbaje, reels out how the bank has been evolving and assures of paying beyond 3 Naira dividends.
We concluded the acquisition of a pension fund administration company. We also completed the acquisition of an asset management company. So you will this year see those results. I also assure you that none of those franchises will make a loss in 2022.
Vote now.
Then voting commenced for the re-election of Segun Agbaje as the Group Chief Executive Officer and other directors of GTCO. GTCO is once again assuring its customers of leading the evolution of financial services on the continent with best policies that will be favorable to them.
That will lead us to more business news. Here's Teniola Shibawali.
Thanks a lot, Amarachi. Welcome to Business News. World food prices have jumped nearly 13%, hitting a new record high from 141.4 points in February to 159.3 in March. According to the United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization, the spike in the index comes as the war in Ukraine caused turmoil in markets for staple grains and edible oils. Last month, FAO warned that food prices could rise by up to 20% as a result of the conflict in Ukraine. And now, after months of structuring and stakeholder consultations by its promoters, the newly established Infrastructure Corporation of Nigeria has formally launched its operations. This follows the signing of a memorandum of understanding between the Central Bank of Nigeria and 4 appointed infrastructure asset managers.
Okay, thank you.
Today marked a major milestone as Infracore and infrastructure asset managers. Here we're talking of the AAA Consortium, Chapel Hill Denham, African Infrastructure Investment Managers here in Nigeria, and Salam Infraworks have concluded the initial discussions on how they will operate together to deliver infrastructure to Nigeria, to the nations, to Nigeria. However, as global trade networks retreat and agreements fail, Africa moves against the trend, providing opportunities to companies in Nigeria. For Nigerian companies to focus successfully on their competencies, they need to be assured of the infrastructure that they rely upon. The deficit may be large. However, with resources from private sector, targeted incentives from the public sector, and the drive of our individual citizens, I strongly believe that Nigeria will be ready, willing, and able to deliver the infrastructure that will be the foundation of our development in Nigeria.
And now the equities market closed the last trading session of the week in green. Laddie Williams has the details.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. Well, final trading day of the week and the marginal increase we saw at intraday was sustained. The local bourse up 0.19% with 47 billion naira added to the market cap. Activity chart is all red though, with value of equities traded down 25% with 154 million units traded in 4,515 deals. We see financial services sector had a lot of action as 4 out of the 5 figures lifted the market. And we see that reflected in the sectors we track, with banking counter up 0.7%. That's the bank counter for the NGX. Other sectors we track also in the green. Dover led the gainers counter today, adding about 9%. We also see some Tier 2 lenders on that counter, while Royal Exchange led 16 losers, making it a positive market breadth today with 28 gainers. Well, not a bad way to end the first week of trading in April. So far, got 2 greens in 6 days of trading. And that's the Stock Market Report. I'm Laddie Williams. It's back to you.
And that's Business News tonight. It's back to Amarachi for the rest of the news at 10.
Thanks, Daniela. Outside the country, the General Overseer of the Redeemed Christian Church of God, Pastor Enoch Adeboye, has joined his voice to the call for global peace amidst the ongoing war in Ukraine. Pastor Adeboye made the call during a courtesy visit to the Abuja House in London. The residence of the Nigerian High Commissioner to Britain, Ambassador Sharafa Tunji Ishola, alongside his wife. The world-renowned cleric also prayed for Nigeria and for the High Commission staff.
Spokesperson in China. I want us to be encouraged, particularly those of us who are in Britain, because I know you are aware of our problems in Nigeria. I mentioned a little bit of these problems last Sunday. But here in Britain, you have one additional problem. The additional problem is Russia fighting Ukraine. And unless God intervenes, and I know He will, the way things are going, I pray that the whole thing will not degenerate to a nuclear warfare.
American actor Will Smith has been banned from attending the Academy Awards, otherwise known as the Oscars, for 10 years. The 53-year-old, who won Best Actor for his leading role in the movie King Richard, will not be allowed to attend the Academy Awards for a decade as a result of his altercation and physical assault of comedian Chris Rock on stage during this year's Oscars ceremony on March 27th. The decision was made during a Board of Governors meeting held early in the day in Los Angeles. The meeting, initially scheduled for April 18th, was expedited after Smith announced his resignation from the Academy last week. Sports News now. Here's Ayotunde Balogun.
Many thanks, Amarachi. 28 years after members of the Victoria Super Eagles have received the certificates of occupancy for their houses, which was promised by the federal government when the team won the 1994 African Cup of Nations in Tunisia. The Minister of Works and Housing, Mr. Babatunde Fashola, made the presentation to the players in Abuja. Some of the former footballers were on ground to receive the houses, which are situated in the capital of the state of origin of the players. Germany tennis legend Boris Becker could be jailed for up to 7 years after being found guilty of charges relating to his 2017 bankruptcy by a London court. Now, the 54-year-old was accused of hiding millions of pounds worth of assets, including 2 Wimbledon trophies, to avoid paying his debt. A jury found him guilty of 4 charges, including removal of property, 2 counts of failing to disclose estate, and concealing debt. And that's a wrap on sports news.
Thanks, Ayotunde. More international news now, as Ukraine says at least 39 people have died and dozens injured after rockets hit a train station in the city of Kramatorsk in eastern Ukraine. Simon Pusey has more.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Ukraine says at least 39 people are dead and dozens wounded after rockets hit a train station in the city of Kramatorsk. Bloody covered platforms were the result. Video footage of the victims too horrifying to broadcast. Over 100 people were injured in the blast. Moments earlier, this was the scene. Thousands of people at the station trying to flee Russian attacks. The Donetsk governor said Russia fired cluster munitions at the station. As so often, though, the Kremlin denied any involvement. Yet another tragic bombing in a long list that has taken so many innocent lives. World leaders have yet again condemned the attacks. I will start with what happened this morning. Russian forces hit the train station in our city of Kramatorsk. An ordinary train station, ordinary people. There were no military personnel there. There were people who were waiting for a train to get to safe territory. Russian forces hit with missiles. There are witnesses, there are videos, there are remains of missiles. People are gone. At least 30 dead, about 300 wounded. That's for now. Meanwhile, earlier, the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen boarded a train in Poland en route to Kiev. She was going alongside the EU's top diplomats Josep Borrell and Slovak Prime Minister Eduard Heger. A few hours later, the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky held talks with von der Leyen, focusing on steps the EU can take to help Ukraine and bring an end to the war. The suspension of Russia's membership at the United Nations Human Rights Council yesterday will set a new dangerous precedent. That's according to China's foreign ministry spokesman. Zhao Lijian criticized the removal of Russia from the council at a press briefing in Beijing.
It's gross and systematic violations of human rights.
It's after an emergency special session and vote to remove Russia due to atrocities in Ukraine passed by 93 votes to 24. Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett has said the Palestinian who carried out Thursday's attack in Tel Aviv had accomplices and pledged that they would pay a heavy price. Every killer should know that we will reach him, and everyone helping terrorists will pay the price, he said during a news conference in Tel Aviv. It comes hours after Israeli security forces shot dead a Palestinian in his car after he killed 2 people in a Tel Aviv bar. The bar attack was the latest in a string of deadly street assaults that have killed 13 people and shaken the country. A search and rescue operation for 3 missing European divers has continued for the 3rd day off Malaysia's southeastern coast. Local maritime authorities said the search area off a small island about 15 kilometers from the southern state of Johor had been expanded and were optimistic of finding the divers, as they had fully functioning diving equipment and had surfaced before they had disappeared. A Norwegian woman who was diving with the group has now been found safe. Hundreds more Sydney residents have been ordered to leave their homes, some for the 2nd time in a month, with rivers bursting their banks. A man was found dead after his vehicle was swept away by floodwaters in the city's southwest, while roads were submerged and homes and businesses are inundated. More than 4,000 residents are facing flood evacuations. Australia's east coast has been hammered by 3 separate wild weather patterns in the past 6 weeks, with several regions still battling to clear tons of debris after devastating floods submerged entire towns.
Whilst the rainfall has started to ease in most places, we do expect to see those river levels continue to rise for some time before they start to ease back over the next 12 to 24 hours. So what that really means for us is that we will continue to have flooded waterways and flooded river systems for a number of days yet to come.
And finally, Costa Rica's international airport has reopened hours after a Boeing 757-200 cargo aircraft, operated by DHL, made an emergency landing and skidded off the runway. Images from the site showed a yellow plane emblazoned with the DHL logo being doused with firefighting foam where it had landed on a field next to a runway. The tail had detached and a wing had broken. Airport operator Aeris said the airport on the outskirts of the capital San Jose reopened following the 10 a.m. incident. Some 8,500 passengers and 57 commercial and cargo flights were affected by the closure. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel Studios in Lagos.
Thanks, Simon. And the main news again. The Federal High Court, Abuja, today struck out 8 of the 15-count charge filed by the government against the detained leader of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu. And that's the news at 10 tonight. Thanks for watching. I'm Amarachi Ubani. Good night.